welcome to week 2 of Denver Women's Sports Collective Career Advancement, the before, during, and after progression in sports events and marketing. I am your host, Ryan Guy, and joining us today for our discussion, we have Susie Gigante, Community Engagement Manager at Virgin Unite. Susie manages the global community of donors and supporters. Her role is largely focused on making connections between the Virgin Unite community and frontline leaders or organizations that need their support. Previously, some of her professional experiences include membership strategy and operations at President Bill Clinton's Clinton Global Initiative, as well as project manager and communications at Harvard University. Thank you so much, Susie, for being here with us today and sharing your insights. Our next speaker we have today is Lainey Fallhall. She is President-elect and Vice President of Marketing and Communications at International Live Events Association, Denver chapter, owner of Paper Addict, Platypus Papers, and authored events. Lainey has been a part of the events community in Colorado for over 10 years. She is the owner of Platypus Papers, an award-winning custom stationery decor and personalization shop that serves events, individuals, and corporate clients all over North America. She is also the president of the ILEA Denver chapter and has been serving on the board of ILEA Denver for the past 5 years. Thank you, Lainey, for being here. I'm excited to hear from you. And last but certainly not least, our next speaker is Dr. Sean Zhang, Assistant Professor of Event and Meeting Management at Purdue University. Prior to joining Purdue, Sean was an assistant professor in the School of Hospitality at MSU Denver for 3 years. He has global industry experiences in the hospitality and events industry with Shepherd Exposition Services, University of Las Vegas Student Union and Event Services, Midas Convention Services in the US, and COEX International Hotel in Seoul, South Korea. Thank you, Sean, for joining us this evening. Today, we will also be hearing from some announcements throughout our discussions from our DWSC board members as well. But this week, we are focusing on reviewing methods to stay educated on current trends in the industry, how to shift gears to adjust to a pandemic, and how to advance up the corporate ladder. And so let's get right into it, everyone. I wanted to ask you all my initial question: how are you staying up on current trends within the event industry? Sean, I know as a teacher myself, everything has gone to remote learning. So could you explain a little bit how you've had to switch gears and how you've adapted as a professor?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having me, first of all. And well, I actually have been overwhelmed by the amount of the emails and complimentary webinars in addition to all the virtual meetings and events, right? So there are positive aspects of doing everything virtual, it's very convenient, but everyone has probably had a moment where you say, I'm done with the Zoom, right? So like Zoom fatigue is real, but I definitely find some of the resources very helpful for me as I teach online. I also, a lot of universities and colleges have transformed their almost entire classes into hybrid since mid-March, actually, right? So we're going into like ninth month now. So entire classes either hybrid or online. My classes are online. I do asynchronous meetings with the students using Microsoft Teams. So there's a pros and cons basically, but I do try to engage with the students as much as possible. In my class this semester, there were 35 students actually, and students actually, pick up pretty good their digital skills actually. They're able to adjust to the new platform, the Microsoft Teams, where they were able to present their hot topic presentation for 5 minutes, sharing their own PowerPoint screen, for example.
Right.
And so I found the students are adjusting pretty well, and I was really inspired by all of the students who are in different situations, trying to access class beyond time. If you guys are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, I came across the new most up-to-date model with the Wi-Fi and the battery on the bottom of the physiological needs. So nowadays, most important thing is actually the Wi-Fi and the battery life that the students have, especially in this circumstance where students have to access everything online. So the connectivity is the best that they need.
Right. And I had actually heard that you just got your digital events certification during the pandemic. So that's a great way to stay up with the trends during this crazy, crazy year that we've had.
Exactly. Yeah. DES, I was going to mention, that's actually, I got it last year. Digital Advanced Strategies, for those of you who are not familiar with DES, that's provided by PCMA, Professional Convention Management Association. Even if I took it on, acquired it last year, I still take a lot of knowledge and incorporate it into my teaching, and it really helps me develop my online, the virtual event and meetings, actually, because it's classes that incorporates a lot of aspects of event planning. So
Absolutely. I totally understand that from being a teacher myself. You gotta just roll with the punches. So yeah, that was some great insight. Thank you. And Lainey, with your role in marketing and communications at IELA Denver, how has the pandemic changed your work, and what are you doing to stay up on current trends within the industry?
So IELA is ILEA, so the International Live Events Association. And we are constantly, as an organization, we're an international organization, looking at how the people are approaching the pandemic state by state as well as country by country. So locally, we are trying to engage the event industry, which has been very interesting through this. It's definitely a new way of dealing with events. We've lost a fair number of people to other jobs and other industries because of it. And we have a lot of people that are shifting, which has been amazing. So we're trying to, we put out, as an organization, we have a ton of COVID resources for the event professional on the international webpage, which is ileahub.com. And online with ILEA Denver as well, we're trying to bring education and bring support to our members as well as to the international event community here in Colorado, which is a very vibrant and active community as well. It changes your marketing because it's less sales and more like, how can we support you right now? Like everyone needs that glimmer of hope and that knowledge that someone is standing side by side with them and celebrating if they have a win and commiserating if they have a loss and finding all of the in-betweens as well. So it's been quite an interesting roller coaster, but we're here, we're doing it.
Right, and that sense of community is so important right now. And Susie, with your position, how, working in the nonprofit realm, how have you had to adjust to the current times?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. Hi, everyone. I'm Susie. Nice to meet you all. So we are an organization that typically churns out between 15 and 20 high-level events a year, all of which are multi-day immersive experiences. So we take donors, usually groups of 20, 25 high net worth individuals, philanthropists, and we bring them directly to the front lines, places like South Africa, Kenya, the British Virgin Islands. And so we are largely travel-based. And everything we do is in person. So it's been an incredibly challenging year. Once the pandemic hit, we had already had 90% of our 2020 events baked and ready. And so, yeah, it's been tough. And I think there was a lot of resistance initially to dive into the digital world with events because we are used to bringing together really sort of high level individuals. But luckily, we were able to launch a series of virtual gatherings, which have been incredible. We started with the first one back in October. That was focused on criminal justice reform in the US. And then we did one on ocean conservation in November. And then our final one of the year is coming up just in 2 weeks on ending the illegal wildlife trade. So I would say the silver lining in this is that we were forced into the digital age sooner than we would have. And so even though we're going to go back to our signature gatherings of 15 to 20 people, because those work really well and are really high impact, we plan to continue the virtual strategy as well in tandem. And then that way we can engage a different level of supporters that we traditionally wouldn't work with necessarily. So it's been really interesting, and definitely has flipped everything on its head, to say the least.
I like that you mentioned that silver lining, and that's something that we will talk about after our break that we have coming up. I am going to toss it over to our DWSC board president, Erin Lewis. She has our first announcement.
Started out on mute. Great start. Hey everybody, hope you're good. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I wasn't able to hop on last week, so glad to see you guys here. We have a really good crowd tonight. I was just looking at some names, some new names, which is exciting. Just want to remind you guys to check in on socials. I know we're still having a little bit of problems with the newsletter, but the way that we've really been able to bypass that quickly is through our social media. So LinkedIn, Instagram are my personal favorites, but we're on all the 4 majors that you see here. On Instagram, it's Denver Women's Sports Collective, all one word. LinkedIn is Denver Women's Sports Collective. Twitter, I'll get back to you. I think it's Denver WSC. Sorry, Erin, if I messed that up. And then Facebook, it's just Denver Women's Sports Collective. And then if you're missing any events or just want to get your news a little bit faster, you can get it from there.
All right, thank you so much for that, Erin. So Susie, before our break, you mentioned a silver lining that you have experienced, and I would love to know what has been your saving grace during this year of constant changes. What resources have you kind of had to put aside, and what resources would you more so dive into because of this virtual world that we now live in?
Yeah, really, really great question. I think you actually said this just a bit ago, but I think a sense of community is more important than ever before. And we've really doubled down on that to keep our community of donors as connected and as inspired as possible. And a lot of that in the beginning was really focused on the pandemic and how we can support some of the most vulnerable communities in the world that we work with to make sure they had access to basic needs and PPE and medical supplies. But then we realized it's important to continue talking about the other issues that we work on, like ocean conservation, like climate change, like education, because the pandemic wasn't going to go away anytime soon. So I would say the saving grace is, again, just reinventing ourselves, innovating. I think regardless of what industry you work in, everyone has been forced to innovate in some way or another, and us included. And so we've really used this chance to highlight really incredible work that's still happening. And that's really kept the spirits up within our community and has had our community members really engaged in the virtual experiences that we've put on. So we've seen really great attendance at those, which again, we were really nervous about because it's not what we do. We host trips to places like South Africa and go visit, really rural communities. We're not event experts in the digital space. So I think, again, just the saving grace is everyone's sort of come together. Our team has really come together. There was no bad idea. Everyone was able to just throw anything out there. And then we took a couple of them and really ran with it. So it's been really awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, innovation is key in this year. Creativity is what everyone has been having to resort to. I know, Sean, you touched on that a little bit with your experiences as a professor. So what really has been your saving grace during this time?
Yeah, I I agree with the Susie in that, the world is just still moving. So as I transitioned from teaching focused school to research focused school, I've done, I've devoted my time into more reading and, research that I've put aside for a long time. So what I took away from this valuable time is that we as an individual professional or student or as a company, we need to spend our time more strategically, even though we may feel like everyone is stuck at home and everything stopped. I totally agree with the Susie that, in fact, the world is changing faster than ever before. So there are so many words and predictions about the future of the event industry. Given this uncertainty and when the vaccine is coming out, some silver lining news are coming out there, but we as an industry have to be really strategic in preparing ourselves for our next new norm, whatever that will look like. And so, organizations are shrinking their budget, eliminating event budget, but planners are sort of like forced to be more creative, and creative and, do more with less in a post-COVID era. So given the significance of the demonstrating some tangible event values, the current organizer's job is to not just simply plan and execute an event, but sort of like, provide some tangible value. How are we going to measure the value and then provide the outcomes to our audiences, our clients, right? So I always emphasized this to my students that content is king, but within the context, right? So we have to always start with the clear purpose and goals and objective, and that will really drive everything through. So.
Right. That's doing more with less. I am, that is just perfect. That's like the description of this year for sure. And Lainey, I know you talked about how you kind of stayed up on your current trends within this events industry. And we did kind of discuss before you got on, we got on this discussion, how you're starting in the marketing, or excuse me, you're starting out this business and you're doing retail during the holiday season, and what kind of has been your saving grace throughout all of this experience for you?
Community, I will always say community first because that's how we survive. But following on both what Susie and Sean have said, there's definitely strategy that goes into sort of all of this at this point. Everything that we do as professionals, we have to put a little more thought into so that the impact is felt a little more greatly, because of people are tired of being on Zoom. People are tired of being virtual. People are tired of not hugging. People are tired of not being able to yell at each other if they want. Like, there's a whole level of like, oh my God, again. So for us, like my company, my personal company, we typically do big events. We do weddings and corporate events, and we do all kinds of printed goods and, giveaways and all this sort of stuff. But now every one of those companies is saying, okay, well, my budget's half because we're not making the money. And now that we're not making the money, how can I give something to my attendees, to my donors, to my friends and family that's more impactful and meaningful? So some of the things I'm seeing and I'm loving it because this is sort of who I am anyway. I like less waste. And so I love that I'm making personalized cups that are double walled stainless cups that people will keep and reuse. And I'm trying to be thoughtful about what you're putting on it. Like maybe not putting your wedding date anymore. Maybe we're just putting something pretty so they remember it, but they're going to keep it in their kitchen. And, so for me, I'm trying to strategize with my clients about, if you're gifting, gift thoughtfully and gift meaningfully so that it stays with your attendees, your donors, your friends, your family. But, and then with my cohorts, part of ILEA, with all of my members and friends, I'm trying to work with all of them on like, what ideas can we come up with for you to help strategically shift your business? I have people who a year ago were selling a million different kinds of photo booths, and now they're doing virtual events. They're literally producing an entire event. I mean, that is a 180. They've learned how to do things that they were not planning on. And so it's supporting them too and looking for those resources as well and helping point them in the right direction. You know, Sean is a great resource for that. The various schools that have event education are great places to look. ILEA, again, I will always come back to ILEA. But even Susie, with what she's doing and how she's changing how she approaches high-level donors. Some of those donors aren't making money. Granted, some of them are, but some of them aren't. And how do you shift that value for them and keep that value add? So it's actually been really, it's a pain in the butt sometimes, but it's really cool too.
Yeah, I mean, this year has just forced everyone to do things completely differently. And it's shown a different side to a lot of different organizations and companies, and shown a different perspective for a lot of people. I think a lot of people have found that they are much more innovative and creative than they would give themselves credit for. To transition, I would like to ask the audience if they do have any questions for us. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and you are more than welcome to open that up and ask our guest speakers anything that you want to know about from our panelists. But next we have a announcement from our board membership chair, Caitlin Heckert. Caitlin, take it away for us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's awesome to see so many people already joining. I'd just like to let you all know we do have all of our events and resources posted on the website at denverwsc.com. So make sure that you're going there, you're looking at all of the resources and everything that is available to you as a member. If you're not yet a member, please also go there and click the button that says become a member so that we can get some information from you. Then we'll be able to get you on our mailing list and you can get our newsletters and all of the info about all of these awesome events we're doing. Also, if you already are a member and for some reason you're not getting the newsletters or the emails, please reach out to us either over email or on social, just so we can make sure that everyone is getting all of that. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Caitlin. And so, Lainey, to continue, being that you have so many executive positions, what kind of recommendations or insight could you share for all of our viewers for climbing the corporate ladder?
Oh my gosh. Well, so in the events industry, which is what I'm going to talk about, I've been in corporate all over the map. So in the events industry, education has shifted in specifically the last 10 years. There's a lot more really well done education at many different schools and universities across the country. And that is a great way to not only get your foot in the door, but get ahead in this industry. In schooling, when I went to college a few years ago, this didn't exist. There was not, you couldn't go to school for some of these jobs. You learned on the fly. But the school now will give you a heads up or a leg up, as they say, in how to write a business plan and get a business started if that's what you want to do, or how to break into an industry that can be challenging to break into. Especially right now with the pandemic, it's going to be different. Another way that you really do find your way up the corporate ladder in the events industry is networking. You have to go to the various events all over the country. So you should be a part of one of the various, and there are a lot of them, so I'm not even going to start naming them, but there are a lot of various event industry organizations. Whether you're a speaker, you're a planner, you're a corporate planner, you're a photographer, you're a florist, the list goes on and on and on. Get involved in your organizations and then attend. You have to show up. If you don't show up, you're not going to meet people and you're not going to get those connections. And then there are huge events throughout the year all over the country, from CaterSource and TSE to some great smaller events at in different states. Attend those as well, and get to know people. This is not just a hand out your business card and give people your elevator speech. I know we learned that, but that is not how you connect with people in the event industry. They will look right through you and they will put the card in the trash later. I'm sorry, but that's the reality right now. So you got to get to know people and get to know who they are. Ask Sean, hey, you just moved out here to Purdue. Like, what's your favorite thing to do? What have you enjoyed? What did you like in Denver? If I was to go visit Denver, like find out things about people. Like, hey, Susie, you've traveled the entire world. What would be your #1 destination if I can pick only one in the next 5 years? Where would you recommend I go and what would you recommend I do? Like, that's getting to know people and creating those valuable relationships that will last for years and may open doors that you have no idea are out there. Trust me, there are so many more opportunities in the event industry than you can imagine, but you only learn about them by learning about the people that are involved. So that, for me, is a huge piece of climbing that ladder. And then you got to do the work. Both these folks that are on here with me, I am sure, know what it's like to do a 24-hour or more day on an event. Things go sideways sometimes, and you have to just roll up your sleeves, put on your mucklucks, and do the best you can. And you're going to have some of those, and it's going to stink, but you're going to learn more than you ever thought you could. And that alone will put you higher up on the ladder than your cohorts that go, that's my 8 hours. See you tomorrow. So those are some of the things that really help you climb the ladder in the events industry. Obviously, very passionate about that. So if you want to talk later, hit me up.
And we will have everyone's LinkedIn so you can connect with them, ask them any questions that you may have. We will have those LinkedIn at the end of our discussion. I want to switch over. We have a question from one of our audience members, and I'm going to direct this to Susie. What type of adjustments do you see live events making post-COVID to ensure a full comeback?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think just speaking from Virgin Unite's perspective and the type of events that we do, which are all travel based, I think we are really starting to see just challenges in, that layer of things. So borders being closed. We host events, for example, in South Africa. They've just reopened their international borders to some countries, not others. A lot of our donors are from the US and the UK. And those are two countries that are on the high risk list nearly everywhere. So I think I'm optimistic that we will have a full return to live events, but I don't think we're going to have the same types of events that we're used to. I don't see a return to, your sort of typical 2,000 person conference in a hotel in New York City anytime soon. But I think that's great, because I think what Lainey has spoken about and Sean have spoken about is that we got to get creative, right? And it's forcing us to just stay on our toes and think outside of the box. And I think as an events professional, that's exciting. I think, sometimes events can get repetitive if you're working in a very specific industry or doing a very specific type of event. It kind of becomes a rinse and repeat situation, and that's not going to be the case. So yes, live events, nothing will ever replace human connection and in person, but I think just thinking through those additional challenges that wouldn't have been in the picture beforehand along the way. So it'll just be a little bit more of a planning process for everyone.
Right, absolutely. So Sean, have you noticed your students getting discouraged? I know we kind of talked about this a little bit. I've noticed this about my students that I teach. Working in the events industry, is that something that you see people kind of straying away from now because of the virtual world that we've been on, or is it something that is kind of inspiring your students? What have you noticed?
I guess students are more uncertain at this moment rather than discouraged. So to Lainey's points, it's exciting, and students were event management back in those days, there were not even resources or any educational opportunities for one to become an event planner. But nowadays, universities offer Bachelor's of Science degree in event management and all of that. But during the COVID-19, students find it very uncertain because everyone's talking about new norms, right? So my focus this semester, as I taught an intro to event industry, is that just for students to better understand what's going on under current circumstances, how this COVID thing impacts the industry, how it's shaping the industry. And everyone's talking about technology, but tech is great, but it's just can't replace some of the components of in-person interactions, right? So at the end of the day, we need some sort of human touch to create meaningful connection. So I try to, teach the students through what they're going through right now is not the end of the day, not the end of the day, but a lot of attractions at the university level, college level, department level have been paid to the students, their wellness, not just for their physical wellness, but mental wellness, right? So to the point of virtual shift of the industry, I like the line of an article that says low touch is high touch event industry nowadays. So the range of COVID-19 related, like touch-free, screen technology, all kinds of virtual platform have been introduced to students and us, right? So what does that mean? What does really that mean to us? But what is the story behind of this new technologies? What are we talking about? So most of the time companies who think that is simply switching from in-person to virtual, but whether or not an event is virtual in person, I think we need to keep in mind, one should have a design thinking. What I mean that we have to start by empathizing the stakeholders, what they think, put our shoes in their, put ourselves in their shoes, and think about what they're looking for, what our future audiences, what our current members of the associations are looking for, what they're going through right now, what kind of hardship they're suffering from, right? So try to understand and put up like a strategical recovering strategies. So we just decided at the beginning of the planning process whether what kind of needs are provided by the stakeholders, and how can we meet those needs, right? So we must start with the design thinking, start with the clear purposes and why we do this. What's the needs that requested by our members and our clients and attendees. So.
Yeah, I think all of that insight is extremely important. And Lainey, I have a question from our viewers for you. What are some resources our members can use to research or obtain certifications, training, and education that help advance their careers?
Oh, there are so many of these guys. So
perfect person for this answer.
Oh God, I'm not gonna list them all. I'm not gonna do it. I can't do it. We'll be here all night. So if you've gone to school, that's obviously one of them. If you have a degree at this point in some form of event industry background, that helps. Every single lettered organization almost has their own certifications too. Some of them are phenomenal. Some of them are okay. The one that ILEA offers is the Certified Special Event Planner, and they revamped that test this year. And it's, if you take that test, you truly know your stuff. They ask you everything. They ask you about catering and lighting and the various laws and rules around like fire codes and, like how many people you can have standing and sitting, and like they ask a ton of stuff, planning, organization, risk management, like all of that. And there are a few of those great opportunities out there. The one challenge with the event industry getting these certifications is that not everyone knows what the heck they mean. So you could be out there and you could have a CMP and a CSEP and a this and a that and a blah, blah, and you could have all these letters and nobody knows what they're talking about, what it is. So if you go get letters, which are wonderful, and I strongly encourage you to try this and take some of the tests, because it really lets you know and what you don't know too. Like even just during the trainings, that a lot of these organizations offer you study guides and stuff. If nothing else, go through the study guides. It will teach you what you don't know, and it might show you a path that you had no idea you could take that you might love even more. But if you do go get the letters, you then have to be an advocate for those letters. You have to tell people what it means and tell people why it matters. The more people with letters that do this, the more people will understand how impactful those are and how much you know, and that you are continually doing your refreshing, you're doing continuing education, which is required for all of them. You are involved in the industry, you are staying active. I love that people have letters. I personally do not have letters right now. I'm too busy trying to figure out my own craziness in COVID, but at some point I will probably have letters. Who knows? Maybe I'll just make up some letters like Babu. Fabulous.
So well,
Yes, letters are great. There's a ton of education. Again, you can hit me up if you want to be pointed in directions, because I literally don't have the list in front of me and I don't want to leave somebody out, but there's some great ones.
right.
Sean is another resource for that. Sean probably has the list as well. He may have more than I do, to be quite honest, because that's his job. So hit him up. He's got a whole doctor with his name, so he knows.
Yeah, we will actually have a recap email. We'll have a recap email that will have resources from all of our guest speakers. So that way we will link all of those letters for you, for all of our viewers. And then Susie, I wanted to ask you, because of the pandemic, a lot of people have been trying their best to come together while still socially distancing. We kind of touched on this before about that community and how important it is right now. Do you feel community engagement has improved or has struggled because of COVID?
Great question. I think it definitely in the beginning, it was a struggle, I think, because our community is used to us bringing them together in person and there was so much uncertainty. And then, Zoom fatigue was real. So we kind of stayed out of the virtual events game until October, and we did that on purpose. We wanted that sort of initial wave to pass, and it felt, I even personally was overwhelmed at the number of things that I could join on any given day while trying to juggle a normal work schedule. So we held back for a little bit and then started putting on our virtual gatherings, which were great. But yeah, I definitely think that our community is tighter and closer and more engaged than ever before. And kind of, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we definitely plan to resume our in-person experiences next year. We're actually, because we've canceled so many this year, our schedule for next year is quite ambitious, which I'm excited about. But we also host, again, high-level intimate events of no more than 50. So I think we'll be able to actually safely resume pretty quickly. But we're going to keep doing virtual events because we can reach, hundreds of people instead of just 40 or 50. And so that just gives us more opportunities, more tentacles, if you will, to keep people engaged. And for us as a nonprofit, it just means that there's more impact being generated because our reach is even greater than it would have been. So yeah, sense of community is really, really strong, and excited to see what happens in the coming year.
Right, and I love to hear the positives coming out of this year. That's all I want to hear about, because there's just been so much terrible news this year. But so thank you for sharing that positive, the pros of COVID and virtual events. So that will bring us to our next announcement from our DWSC Board Events Chair, Cheryl Morrison. You can take it away, Cheryl.
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody is having a great week so far. Just want to remind everybody, Saturday, December 19th at 3 o'clock. Remember that your orders for cookies are due this Sunday, the 13th, and then pickup is going to be on Thursday, the 17th at Empower Field at Mile High in parking lot J next to the Mile High Monument. We are also adding a secondary element. If you would like to donate any new, unused, unwrapped toy, we will be donating all the toys to the Fox 31's toy drive after probably on the 20th or 21st. So just remember about that event that's coming up, and there's more details online at our website, and you can sign up there. Have a great night, everyone.
I am so excited for that event, Cheryl. Thank you for that announcement. Who doesn't love cookies and networking? I will be there for sure. I hope I see many other people there. So for our final discussion of the evening, I want our audience to get some final insight and advice from our guest speakers that they can take away from this discussion. So Sean, what is one piece of advice you would like, or not necessarily one, but what is some advice that you would like to leave our viewers with?
Well, first of all, to Lainey's point, just real quick, I was totally feeling what everything she was talking about, the importance of networking and everything. So it's like, yeah, amen. And also, to her point, yeah, I have actually have a list of a certificate. So whoever out there is interested in learning more about certificate, I'll send out the list that I created, the Word file. I can transfer it out there. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, a couple of advices if I give to my students would be passion. I would say passion. Passion leads one to better opportunities. I should say. That's why I was so agreeing with the importance of networking. I was trying to put myself into whatever the opportunities come out, and then I never thought I would get a doctor in event management. One would say his doctor is teaching event management. What is he talking about, right? But yeah, there's a degree, doctor degree in hospitality and management. So that's related to event management. My industry background was in conventions and trade shows. So anyways, the passion, I was really passionate about trade show industry. I kept putting myself in whichever opportunities, I was sort of like I was very intentional when finding opportunities. When volunteering, applying for jobs, developing my skills, getting certifications. If it doesn't seem feasible right now, if it doesn't seem that there's a direct benefits right now, I just did it because I was so passionate about this industry. I thought, I'm gonna do something. I don't know what's gonna be in the future, but I'm gonna do something in this industry for sure, right? So I kept telling me, I'm passionate about this industry and what is my end goal. So I asked my students to answer their question. What's your end goal, first of all? And what is the purpose of doing what you're doing, right? And so this kind of thought process really help you not only position well in a company culture, but also allow you to align your personal mission statement with the mission statement of the company you will end up working for. Right? So practice. I always tell our students to go to the company you want to work for and find their mission statement and practice the mission statement that come out of the website, right? So, and yeah, that's all I do. I'm really I'm an advocate for professional associations. So ILEA, PCMA, MPI, IAEE, just get involved, especially in Colorado. What I've experienced over the past 3 years was that such a cohesive group in Rocky Mountain chapter, right? So Rocky Mountain chapters of PCMA, Rocky Mountain chapters of MPI and IAE, they're so strong, cohesive. They're really supportive, not only for the members, but for the community and for students. So yeah, reach out to them. They'll be happy to help you. That's my personal testimonial I've experienced with these wonderful industry professionals. So that's my advice.
Right. I always have said this, that passion and purpose go hand in hand, and that is extremely important. I know I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it weren't for being so passionate about speaking to people and putting myself out there and networking. So that is great insight. Thank you, Sean. And we will have, like I said before, a little recap email that we will send out to all of our viewers that has everyone's specific insight to take away from this. And Lainey, what resources or insight do you have for our audience? I know we went over plenty of resources, but what kind of do you want them to take away from this discussion?
So if you're in the events industry and you're on this call, you've gone through the COVID chaos, right? I mean, there's no one that hasn't. So one of the things I tell my board and I tell my friends is it's okay to do nothing, right? Like, let's start with that right now. Like, if you need a day off or a week off, like, that's important. So that's okay. This is coming from somebody who runs their own business. Okay. It's okay. And find out what you're passionate about. Exactly what Sean was saying. One of the things I have found is I have not been the best at pricing through this, because now I have a little extra time. I'm literally tracking every minute I spend on things. And I'm like, hey, like, I'm going to make some changes. I've also learned that I love designing crazy stuff. I love it. It's so much fun. It's so crazy. And it's what I do for clients, but now I'm doing it for my little tiny store too. And it's a riot. In terms of resources, you know, we're going to send out stuff to you guys. Sean, we're going to use Sean's list because it's going to be better than my list. But, you know, if you are employed by someone and you're in the events industry, you need to go pitch them one of the organizations at this end of the year as they're planning their fiscal 2021, especially if your year ends in December. You need to pitch them an organization if you're not part of one and get to be part of an organization. Pick one. It doesn't have to be ILEA. I, of course, would love to have you, but you can choose one that fits you. Do the research, read about the organizations, but get involved. If you are a business owner and you are not involved in one of these organizations, you really, really ought to be. You are a leader. And as a leader, you, I feel, have an obligation to help grow this industry and to help educate those up and coming. So I would highly recommend that you also look into getting involved in an organization in 2021. And really just enjoy the roller coaster. This is where crazy ideas happen. And if you are unhappy in a job and they are not letting you pitch your ideas, because Susie said, if you heard her at the beginning of this call, she said everything went out the window. So we threw out every idea that we had, and then we took a few and ran with them. That is exactly what everyone should be doing right now. What are the craziest ideas? You want to put an elephant on a roof? Hell yeah, let's figure out how to do that. Like, what else can we do? So get out there, find your passion, you know, make the shifts to make your job what you love again if you weren't loving it. Get involved in the organizations and get social and really and truly innovate, because this is the time. And your innovation may have nothing to do with your job, and you may find a new passion, and that's also okay. So I'm obviously a fan of the it's okay to be all the things right now, because I do it on a daily sometimes, where super high, super low, throwing my computer against the wall. All of that is how we are right now, and it's totally fine. You can see all the panelists are grinning too, because they all know exactly what I'm talking about. So, you know, go out and get it and reach out, man. Like, all three of us that are here, we joined this because we want to give back and we want to help. And I can guarantee that we would all respond to you. It may take a couple days, but we will respond and we will let you know kind of what's going on in the world. So.
That warms my heart. I love that you're like, yes, please talk to me. That's awesome. That's all what we need. And that's what we've been talking about. Community is so important, and reaching out and asking for help. I encourage everyone to do that, because I know I am guilty of kind of feeling like I'm a burden when I do that to people. And it's when you're networking, be a little annoying sometimes. Get out there and put yourself out there. and just be confident in your passion and your purpose. And Susie, what would you like to leave our audience with from this discussion?
Yeah, I think just picking up on the networking front, obviously we've kind of hammered that one, but the silver lining in this is that networking is actually easier than ever in a way. You don't have to, drive 30 minutes to go get that coffee to meet with that person. We are hyper connected. And so networking is really easier than ever. And so if you weren't a fan of it before, it's time to get on board. I think anyone, especially in the events industry, has gotten where they are because of the people that came before us and the opportunities to learn from them. So definitely key. I think it's also important to recognize that there's tons of different flavors of events. I happen to now work in nonprofit, but have spent years and years planning any event I could get my hands on, a wedding, a closed door government meeting, you name it. Don't say no. Plan any chance you can get, because as we've seen, that can be taken away really quickly. And it's an incredibly transferable skill set. If you can plan an event of any kind, it means you're hyper organized. You can stay calm, cool, and collected in stressful situations. You're probably one of the most dependable people out there. And as Lainey said, you're ready and willing to work after hours and all hours, because that's what it takes. And so I always say, if you can work and survive an event, you've got a rare kind of grit, and that skill set will take you far no matter what role or industry you're in next. And so I never thought I'd be working in nonprofit for 10 years now, but I just love events so much that I kind of fell into this world, and now being able to do events and give back at the same time is just kind of the perfect nexus of it all. So I would just say, plan anything you can. If a friend needs help planning something, be the first person to raise your hand. The more events you have under your belt, the better. And would just extend an open invitation similar to the other panelists. If anyone's specifically interested in the nonprofit world and events, they're always happy to connect and chat some more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of your amazing insight. I really appreciate you all coming on here and answering all of these questions from our audience members, sharing your insights. I want to check our question and answer box just to make sure we don't have any other questions. It looks like we have answered everything, so that will about wrap it up for our week 2 of the discussion series, Career Development, the Before, During, and After Progression in Sports, Events, and Marketing. Thank you all so much again to our guests, Susie, Lainey, Sean. Come back next week, December 15th, to hear from our next 3 guests. Lindsay Solano, Athletic Director and Assistant Principal at 27J Schools, Christine Spiller, Senior Director of Event and Service at Climate Pledge Arena, and Kelsey Bannister, Vice President of Premium Client Services at Kroenke Sports and Entertainment. Thank you again to everyone who tuned in to week 2 of our discussion. I'm your host, Ryan Guy, and we will see you next week.